I'm recording.
Record.
We're good now. Okay, we're recording. Phoebe's going to be a little bit late. She had to go to the DMV today and they're running behind. Okay, so just an FYI, I'm having a class today that's $5 for everybody to go over PT 45 LR1. The link that I sent out in the email had a link to, I think, like 10 video explanations for PT 45 LR2. Did everybody see that? If you missed it, did anybody miss it or confused of what I'm referring to?
Calm down.
Gaio, I'm sorry, what?
Oh, sorry, I'm talking to my dog. Let me mute myself.
You're fine.
This is the one that you sent yesterday, that email?
So if you went on to that, and even after I sent the email, I added 5 new videos because I had a lesson with Katie and we went over the ones that she missed. So there's about 10 questions on there where I have video explanations for in that playlist. So if you missed any of those questions, I recommend starting there to see if you, even the ones, I mean, I would recommend just watching them for additional learning. I'm going to try to do that as much as possible. It just takes so long to record and then upload. So part of the reason why I ask people to submit the questions they've missed is I go through and highlight questions that were missed more than 5. My goal for myself is questions that were missed by more than 5 people, doing the video explanations for those questions first as much as possible. So that's why.
Nicole.
Yes.
Hi, can I ask a question? Is there like a deadline for the submissions? Is it the day before?
No, there's no deadline for the submissions. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more because I think there was some questions on that, on the homework in general, and that's on the a coming up slide. So we'll get to that in just one second. But I referenced that because, so today we're doing PT 45 LR1 at 12:30 Eastern time. It's $5 to join, and we're going to review. I mean, other students are welcome to come to this that aren't in the boot camp. However, you're welcome to come and we're going to go over the most missed questions, or people just throw out an answer, we'll go over it. And we're going to do that today. I am going to have office hours this week. I don't think anybody came to office hours last week, which was fine because I think everybody was overwhelmed with homework. If I am not there, just shoot me a text, because if I'm on for 10 minutes and nobody joins, I just turned it off. So if you're planning to join, shoot me a text that day or just let me know. Or if you're joining and I'm not on it, like just shoot me a text, because I don't typically like just keep it open if nobody's there, but I want to be available those hours. And the goal of office hours is if you feel like you're falling behind or you have any questions, especially if you feel like we're going through a lesson and you're like, okay, just so that we can keep the class moving. If you feel like, oh, I really started getting lost at this point, just make a note of that and bring that to office hours, or shoot me an email and let's set something up. Or maybe I can create a video or find some resources so that we can fill in those gaps for everybody. And then additionally, I have a flaws class tomorrow, and then and then I have a class reviewing PT 46-1 on Monday. I'm not gonna talk about that. Okay. So the homework, I do feel like there was some confusion on the homework on like what was due, when was it due. The first thing is homework is always a guideline. I'm never going to be upset if someone does I'm not going to hold you accountable to doing your homework. It's not like, however, I do use the information from the homework to determine, for example, what questions are most missed. A lot of people had submitted their LR. Well, actually, so part of the example was, actually, no, there's no example yet. But I go into that, so there's a lot of information for 2 of the tests prep, or 45, 1 and 2 already in. So that's how I figured out for 45, 2 what videos to do. And then I have a running document where I copy everyone's scores in, and that's what I'm paying attention to on the down low, like outside of class, what I'm looking at, which some of you got text messages from me this week, because I'm truly paying attention to how many questions you're getting correct, how many you're missing, and what question types you're missing. So for example, we have some students that had less than 10 correct on their practice test, and I believe got 12 or 13 right on their first practice section, which is amazing. That's they averaged a 5-point increase. So I'm looking at that, and if you know who you are, like, you should smile and feel so proud of yourself, because that was incredible. We have another student that a couple weeks ago was only getting 10 correct, and this week got her first 20 or 21. That's amazing. We have another student that got her first 25 out of 26 on an RC section. Granted, it was untimed, but I'm looking at all this information, and based on where you're at is where I'm suggesting you to do. And the other thing that, and if I haven't said anything to you, it's because you're completely on track. Another thing I'm looking at is what question types you're missing. So I go through, and for example, when we were doing must be true questions, we had a lot of students miss. It was a number 8. And it was a must be true or most strongly supported question. And that was a huge red flag for me. Like, okay, I clearly did not explain something well, and we need to review that. So that's just big picture of why so if I send out those reminder emails, it's less of like, oh, I need you to do this by this deadline. It's more, hey, I really do want this information when you get it done. Does that make sense? Or how I'm using, so the more you do it and stay on track, just the more I'll be able to tailor the lesson for you. Like I know I included Gina in an email for not submitting her homework. I know she's on vacation. I'm not mad at her for not doing it. I'm just truly sending her the email so like she can flag it, and when she gets back, she can submit it. Now the drilling, we are not going to review the drilling questions in class at this point. This is for students that are not quite sure on what and how they should be drilling. Like you need to have a balance between doing sections and drilling. So if you feel like you're very drilling heavy right now, we have to open the Band-Aid a little bit and do more sections, because this is how, like, you have to get used to switching between the question types. There's a lot of value there, and you can go back and drill some of those questions. So the goal of this homework is to pick one section a day, maybe 2, or one section and 2 drilling sections and doing those. It really should be on, this should probably take you between an hour or 2 a day. If you're doing other stuff, that's okay. If you're doing other drilling homework, just focus on the sections. Does that make sense? If you are following your own study plan and you're like, well, this is what I think Gaia's one that has her own study plan. Maybe not. Like if you're doing something else, totally fine. I'm gonna say it again, just focus on the sections and submitting that. Oh,
Nicole?
yes.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to do everything. Like I try to do drilling as much as I could. It was a lot of questions.
I'm sorry. I know that you reached out about having a study plan, and if you do have a study plan and you say like you're on your own, like I do these questions, keep doing what you're doing, and you do not have to do this drilling. My drilling is just going to correlate with what we're doing in class. Like we did main must be true questions. We did main, like we did reasoning role. Maybe you just do some of them. Like you do not, like all of that is up to your own discretion. But the sections are more important. And I think what I should do is maybe like I should assign section homework on Tuesday and just know that you have until the following week to get done. Because I like for one of these, like PT 46 LR2, I'm pretty sure I put on this thing, like if you have time, because everybody has different schedules. So I want to give it to you in advance as possible, so you can manipulate your own schedule. Like if you have a really busy weekend coming up, I wanted to have you to have it so you're all adults and everybody can manage their own time, right? And so maybe I should have clarified that more of when things should be due so that I'm using that information. And I meant to do that by sending the email last night, like, hey, these are the 2 sections that are most important. So did everybody get a chance to do at least PT 45, the LR section, and the reading comp section? Those were the 2 most important.
I haven't finished the RC. I've only gotten halfway through RC.
Okay, no worries. So yeah, moving forward, focus more on and if you have to do the reading comp section untimed because you just don't have time to sit down and do a timed section and you need to use it as your drilling questions, I would rather that than not know what you're missing.
I know that we're doing it like untimed, Nicole, but I want to know, like, is there like a time range we should be focused in? 40 minutes, 50 minutes for doing RC?
You see on PT 46, your LR, I actually switch it to timed. The reason that I did the first one untimed is I want to see where your accuracy is at when you have unlimited time. Because if we add the time pressure, I want to see how much is the time truly affecting your score? And once I see that, I will probably reach out to some of you and say, hey, I want you to do your time sections at 42 minutes, or hey, I want you to do 40 minutes. I want you to keep doing them on time for the time being. And some of that's going to come back down to when you're taking your test. Like, so for example, Katie, I was talking to her last night and I said, hey, so she got that, she was the student that got 25 out of 26 on an untimed reading comp section, which is amazing. And so for her, maybe it's adding 5 minutes to the 35 minutes and having 40 minutes to do all 4 sections right now and slowly taking time away. But not all of us are at that point yet where we can still do 35 minutes and just trying to get through 2. If that's our goal, perfect. Is that good for everybody?
Yeah.
Awesome. The goal is not to stress you out, but it is to have high expectations so you feel motivated.
I have a question. If we triage like the reading comprehension section timed and like literally guess on the like 4th one, do you want us to submit like as we guessed it, or like attempt to do it after the time? Does that make sense?
Yes, no, that makes a perfect sense. I think I want you to submit. That's a great question. Reading comp, I don't pay attention to the numbers I don't even think I asked for the numbers that you missed just because of that reason. I think I want how you did untimed on,
Okay.
but maybe I'll add an option in the future of how you do once you finish, because I do think that, because that does show accuracy. That's a good point.
Because my goal is honestly to just do 3 of them and get them done well.
Hey, I have a slide for you. So that's awesome.
Okay.
Okay. So did anybody have any problems? I believe Jasmine reached out and actually asked for this slide. So I added it to the website. So I appreciate her putting in that extra, knowing that she really wants to review. Did anybody have any problems kind of remembering how we should go about reviewing a section? Did anybody attempt it for the first time?
I did.
How did it go?
It helps a lot. It really did.
So how can you tell us what you did or what that looked like for you?
So what I did was I did the time section 46, and I got to question 17 before the time was out. No, question 17, and then I finished
And
it.
how did you do on those first 17 questions?
I got 15 out of 17.
That's amazing.
So I was really excited. And the 2 that I got
student
wrong,
that had big success on her numbers this week.
yeah, and so I did notice that the 2 that I did get wrong, I misread the question. Well, I won't say I misread it. I didn't comprehend it the way I should. And then the additional ones that I finished, I did get 3 of them correct. And then the other, I think 3, when I did blind review, I did get right. So it did help me realize what I was doing wrong.
And on your blind review, 2 questions, I think you said, was it you? It might have been Kamani, where I think it was you, Jasmine, that said you missed 6 questions, correct?
Yes,
Total?
and 4 of them.
And I said, out of the whole goal, if we just focus, no, I know what it was. There were 6 questions that you missed, but got correct on blind review, right?
Right. Yeah, that's
so
right.
Maybe she missed more than 6 questions, but her goal for this week was just to focus on those. Like if she just focused on those 6 questions of why when she narrowed it down to 2, why did she pick the wrong answer? That's a huge win for the week. Just focusing on those 6 questions.
And thank you, because that really helped. And as we talked about on our one-on-one, those questions that I choose the wrong one, is an assumption. So I was like, logically that should be correct versus sticking to the stimulus. So I now know that I need to buckle down as far as assuming.
Awesome. Another person, Carolina, you don't say anything if you don't want. You were someone else that had a lot of progress between week 1 and week 2. Was there anything that really helped you get that progress? Or do you have any advice for others?
I want to say that your plan does help. I was drilling a lot, and then I was using I've been watching your videos that you have posted. So I did watch the Back to Basics, which I loved, and I have been watching, I think it's from the LSAT Demon.
Mhm.
I just feel like those extra resources help me connect more and target more the questions properly.
Because you had significant improvement. Awesome. Did anybody else did anybody else have anything they noticed between week 1 and week 2 that was really helpful?
Yeah, I'll say
Yeah,
drilling for
no, you
me.
had really good numbers too, but I don't
Yeah.
have your original numbers to compare to.
Ah.
No, I don't want to throw
But
you under
drilling,
the bus, but you said in your individual sections, you just, yeah.
yeah, I did. Yeah, drilling that really helped me though. I mean, I'll say drilling and just doing the problems and reviewing what I did wrong. I think LSAT Demon was like a great resource though, because like I say, they literally explain to you what you got it right or wrong. So um, it really helped me break down each particular question type, understanding it.
Nicole, I did want to show if people did download the book that you recommended, how I had it bind and at the printing place, it really did help.
Oh
Because,
yeah,
like,
that's the LRBT2 document that is like
yeah,
looked around that I have on the website. Jazz, when I met Jasmine, she had already had it printed and bound.
yeah, and so like I put down like the drilling homework on a notepad so I can check it off every time I do it to keep me accountable.
Oh, I
So
love
like I
that.
share this around. So that really helped me keep on track with drilling.
Thank you for sharing that.
Nicole, I have a question. If one, like, I have the loophole, right? But if I feel like I'm progressing kind of without it, because like I'll read a couple chapters, but then like it'll get a little bit like uninteresting and it doesn't like, do I gotta keep reading it, or like would you say just keep
What
doing?
chapter are you on in the loophole?
I'm on like 4 to 5, like 4 to 5. So I read up to that.
I could go grab it quick. Katie, I think you've more recently read it. Or Cora has too. I think it's the first 8 chapters are pretty good, right?
Oh.
There's a number that
Yeah, there's that one chapter to completely stay away from, and that's the where she like throws in,
no, one second, I'm gonna go
here's
grab.
the tricks, and I forget what chapter that is, and it's later on. And I would 100% stay away from that, because I read that and then I started doing that and I had to completely unlearn everything that I did. So yeah, first 8 chapters, and then after that I would stop.
Thank you, Cora.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you, because I just purchased the book as well, and I'm barely in the beginning. But
Yeah, it teaches a lot of structure, and that's what you need for LR and for reading comp, is that structure, which is good because she's wanting you to get used to how to predict answers and where's your conclusion and what's your support. And that's vital in LR. So that part of her book is good. It's just when she starts talking about these tricks, because what happened is LSAT got very smart when her book got printed or published, and they started making the test harder, where it because so many people
different,
yes, because they were making it where her tips and tricks would not work, because they are seeing higher scores because people were using the loophole. So just use it for structure and nothing else. Don't use it for the tips, the tricks.
The first 7, I like the first 7 chapters.
Yeah,
because I did not do the clear drill. Did you like the clear?
I did the clear, but that was something I was already kind of already doing with
necessary. I don't think it's necessary.
No, it's not necessary.
I feel like her clear drills kind of overlap with the techniques you teach us. So if you're already implementing the idea of like, is it a top down or a bottom up question? What do we do during these questions? Are we looking for a stronger week? Then you're already doing kind of her clear technique. But it was super reaffirming, and I think using them together, like it's not as though it's introducing something that's going to contradict what we're learning kind of in these sessions, but she just goes more into detail. But it's really, really interesting. I loved all of her chapters about sentence structure. I think it really teaches you and gives you a new framework on how to analyze and really understand a stimulus, which is awesome. I think I read up to like the first 9 chapters and I really liked it, but I didn't go beyond that.
Yeah, so first 7, no, I would recommend reading the last 3 at your own pace. Okay, so far, even though it might not feel like we've covered a lot of content, we actually have covered quite a bit, because I was looking over my outline and I was like, oh, we've already done a lot of the basics. So we've covered most strongly supported questions, must be true, conclusion, reasoning. Okay, so those 4 we've already covered. Today we're going to talk about, before we go into reading comp, we're going to talk about disagree questions. But after that, we don't have that many more question types to cover. So hopefully that helps you have a little bit of confidence on, we really are covering quite a bit. So disagree, and these also can be called agree questions. Our approach is going to be the same. I probably should have put that on here. They just most commonly are are more likely to be disagree questions. And these questions are whenever we have 2 speakers. So let's say that we have Taylor Thomas and we have Nikki. So what happens here is...
Are you sharing something, Nicole, or are you still on the same slide?
Oh yeah, I'm sharing something.
I mean, I'm seeing the review LR section slide. So
The what?
how to take and review an LR section. You're on that
How
slide.
everybody else is seeing?
Yeah, it's on
Yes,
the original slideshow still.
Okay, what about now?
Yep, perfect.
Thanks, Nico.
Okay, so these are also agree questions. I believe, did Angelica join? I don't see her. Oh, there she's right. Okay. Zach, what is your question? But first, hey, Angelica, we probably don't need you for about 15 minutes.
Okay. All right, then I'll come back in like 15.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
We're going to break up into small groups and I'm going to have her in charge of the groups in about 15 minutes. Zach, what is your question? Can you talk about the load? Okay, that's great, Zach. I'm going to save that for next week just because today's gonna be mostly a reading comp. But yes, I want to cover that for sure. Okay, disagree versus agree. This is whenever I have 2 people. So I believe I had Taylor Thomas and Nikki, which Nikki, is your last name start with a B, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Taylor Thomas, who is your favorite singer? Oh, I hate questions like this because I can never.
Oh boy. I know. How can I narrow it down to one?
Well, I'm the opposite. I can't think of a single singer when someone asks me something like this.
My favorite band is Queen.
All right, there we go. And Nikki, who's yours?
I'm like you. I can't think of a single thing.
Okay, keep thinking of one. And then Nikki, and Taylor, why is Queen your favorite singer?
I like that their music can kind of, even though it's more rock, it can also kind of sound like kind of opera style, kind of pop. So it can kind of cross different genres.
All right, and then Nikki, did you come up with one?
Okay, so I'm just gonna pick a person. Let's just put Beyonce.
I'm okay with that. And why do you think Beyonce is the best? Let's go with because she has a large vocal range.
Right. I like the way that she sounds, but okay.
Okay. So on disagree questions, where a lot of people go wrong is these are top-down questions. So that means we have our stimulus, we have our question stem. Our stimulus is 2 people. We have our question, and then we have our answer choices.
Mm-hmm.
How we approach these questions is I actually draw a little line beside of it, and I just focus on one half of the argument. And this is because I can't keep a lot of information in my head at one time. And so what I do is I reread the stimulus, I understand it, I find their conclusions, then I reread the first person's argument, and I go through the 5 question choices, and I ask myself, would this person say yes or no to this statement? So let's say that it was, the first statement was, Rock is the best genre. Would Taylor, based on just our statement, Queen is best because rock genre, again, goes across several genres, would we be able to say that Taylor agrees with that? Yes or no? Ooh, Cora's shaking her head yes, but I disagree. I think that just because her conclusion here is that Queen is best, right? We don't know that rock is the best genre from that. Granted, I would assume that Taylor would probably be more likely to agree with this than disagree, but technically, do we know? No. And this is the fun part about disagree questions is when we go through the first time, if the first person or the top person that we're referencing, if we don't know, we just get to cross that answer choice off. Because if we don't know what one person thinks about it, then how do we know if they disagree or agree? So if the second answer choice was Beyonce is the best, would Taylor agree or disagree with that? Disagree, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where, if I had my little line, I'm just gonna write Beyonce, I would write no. And I would keep going. So let's say for answer choice 3, whatever it is, she would say yes. Answer choice 4, we don't know what Taylor would say. Answer choice 5, she would say no. Then what I do is, one thing that's cool is we've already eliminated 2 answer choices here. Now what I'm going to do is we're going to look at the second person and we're just going to focus on the second person. And I'm going to go through the 3 answer choices that I have left, B, E, or B, C, and E, and ask myself, would Nikki agree or disagree with this? So answer choice B, would Nikki agree that Beyonce is the best? Yes. And the second that I have this, I know what they disagree on. So let's continue and say maybe answer choice C, we don't know what Nikki would say. So even though it might even be likely that she would say yes, if we don't know, we have to cross it off because we don't know what she would say. And maybe for the last one, she would also say no. And since they both would say no, they agree, right? They don't disagree. And so that's how we're going to come to our answer choices on this. Does anybody have any questions on this approach so far? All right. Did everybody do the disagree questions from that one sheet that I sent out from last class that we didn't get to?
Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna go ahead and try one now. Let's just do one. Okay. So 10. Derek, can you go ahead and read what Richard says?
Yes, Richard, because it fails to meet the fundamental requirement of art that it represent, abstract art will eventually be seen as an aberration. Jiangsu, although artists, like musicians, may reject literal representation, makers of abstract art choose to represent the purely formal features of objects, which are discovered only when everyday perspectives are rejected. Thus, whatever others come to say, abstract art is part of the artistic mainstream.
All right. So what is Richard's conclusion, Trish?
Richard's conclusion is that abstract art is going to be seen as an aberration, and it fails to meet the fundamental requirement of what art is.
Yes. Our conclusion is abstract art will eventually be seen as an aberration And our reasoning is because it fails to meet a requirement of art, which is that it represents. Excellent. Jemmy, what is Jung Soo's conclusion?
The last sentence, which I'm always scared of, like.
I had nightmares about that question from last class.
Yeah, but the conclusion would be abstract art is part of the mainstream, artistic mainstream.
Yes, abstract art is part of the artistic mainstream. Excellent. So we were going to go about this. This is actually a tough question, by the way, even though it's only a number 10. So what I would like everybody to do is, even if you've already answered this, go ahead and draw your line and go ahead and do the approach of what would Richard say and then what would Jung Soo say. So start with Richard and go through and say, would Richard say yes or no to this statement? And once you're done doing Richard, go ahead and do Jung Soo and then just put done in the chat when you're done. If you're finished, go ahead and go through the other answer choices and write down like how you could change them to make them correct. That it would be like, what could you change about that statement that would make it be something that they would disagree over. And we'll take 60 more seconds for people to fill out their charts. Okay, so let's go through and have Gina. Hopefully your brain's working now this morning. Now that it's 6:13 a.m. your time. Will you go ahead and go through and walk us through if Richard would agree or disagree with these statements? So start with letter A. Oh, you're on mute, Gina. You're still on mute. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I don't have a really good connection, so I might.
Okay, I can hear you well right now.
Okay. Makers of abstract art reject literal representation. So based upon what Richard would believe, that would be true. So yes, he would say that abstract art rejects literal representation.
Okay.
Do you want me to go and then say what John
Yep.
Sue?
No, I want you to do all Richard.
Oh, all Richard. Okay. The fundamental requirement of art is that it represents. And I would say yes. Richard also agrees with that.
Okay.
And C, musicians may reject literal representation. Well, we don't know because he didn't talk about musicians at all.
So what are we gonna do?
So question mark.
Nope.
So
What are we
cross
gonna
it off.
cross it off?
Cross it off.
Yeah, this is a I love when this happens.
Okay, and D, abstract art will be seen as aberration. Yes, we'll agree that Richard will agree with that as well. And then E, abstract art is representational. I wasn't sure about this one, to be honest, but I put no.
No, and we know that
Or
because
is
it
it?
says it fails. So it's saying that abstract art fails to meet the fundamental requirement that it represents.
Oh, okay, got it.
Excellent. Does everybody agree with her yes and no's for Richard? Or did anybody have a conflict? Did anybody disagree with her? Probably about other things, right? Just not this question. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that would be ongoing forever.
Join the list, right? Okay, Mel, can you go ahead and do Jiangsu for us? Oh, you're on mute too.
Oh, sorry. Hi. So makers of abstract art reject literal representation. Will Junsu agree with that? Well, because he says makers of abstract art choose to represent the purely formed features of objects, which are discovered only when everyday processes are rejected. So I guess art reject. I said for me, I said yes, but I could be wrong.
No, I think that you're right. But since they both
okay.
say yes, do they disagree on this?
Mm-mm.
No,
Nope.
we gotta cross it off, right?
Right.
No, excellent.
Okay, so B, the fundamental requirement of art is that it represent. I think they kind of agree on that one.
We're not asking if they agree. I'm just asking you, does Jiangsu agree with it or not? You're correct, but I want to get everybody on the mindset.
Okay.
Focus on these as their individual goals, because when we get to tougher disagree questions, we're less likely to make mistakes if we focus on a smaller task at hand.
Mm-hmm. So would he agree on that? The fundamental art is that it represents. I think so. Or maybe not.
What do
did you
other
ask me?
people think?
I said I don't know, leaning towards yes. Like I wasn't completely sure, but I think if anything, it would be he does agree to that one. So I agree with Mel.
Perfect. So you were saying, Katie, it would be yes or I don't know?
Yes.
So in that situation, what do we do with that answer? Does it matter? Is there any difference between having a yes and a yes and an I don't know?
That's that right.
Okay, so this is a hint. An I don't know is a no. So I don't know, no. That sounds really silly, but if we don't know, it's not, well, maybe it's, well, I mean, it is maybe, but because it's a maybe, it's a no. So I don't know is a no. Does that make sense? And that's just to get faster. Like I'm breaking it down to this level because this is truly how this is how you actually are faster by breaking them into two, because whenever you're focusing on both of them, what you tend to do is you read one answer choice and then you go up and you read both of them again. and then you read B, and then you go read both of them again. But whenever you read one, it's easier to remember one, read Richard once, and then just read the answer choices and not have to keep going back and forth, which maybe other people don't do that, but I would do that. I would read them, yeah. All right, so what about D, Mel?
Abstract art will be seen as an aberration. I don't think he would agree with that. Well, he didn't talk nothing about it.
So you said no.
Aberration.
Okay, so I'm gonna put a no. You're kind of thinking,
Yeah.
I'm gonna put a no here for a second and circle it.
I'll put no. I agree.
So, and then E, what did you say for E?
Abstract art is representational. I say yes for that. Okay. I think he will.
So in this situation, we have 2 points of which they disagree, right?
Right.
So one of them we didn't get correct. For this question in particular, it was pretty easy for me to go with E, even though, and I didn't spend a lot of time, if I was doing this in a time section, figuring out why D was wrong. I just knew E had to be something they disagreed with. However, that's not good enough on blind review. Like, I need to know why D is wrong. Does anybody know why D is incorrect and why we don't know if they disagree on it or not?
He never really talks about it in his in John Sue's and his like point of view. He never mentions it. So I just cross it out because I don't see a disagreement with aberration. I don't think he'll think that it's unwelcoming.
I think his opinion would be that, his opinion is that abstract art is a part of the artistic mainstream. So I don't think he thinks that it should be seen as an aberration. However, what he is saying is that abstract art will be seen. He might not agree with the fact that he might not agree with the complaints that Richard or people with that mindset have, but that does not mean that he doesn't like. I'm trying to think of an example. Let's say that I might disagree with something, but that's the direction life is headed. And so I don't disagree with that's the way it's headed, or I disagree with what's happening, but I don't disagree that that's the direction we're going. Does that make sense or no? Let me think of an example. Sorry, can I give an example, Katie, and then you can share? So let's say that a college degree will eventually be worthless. Let's say that a college degree will eventually be worthless. And I might think that I might disagree with that personally. Like, I think a college degree is worth something. However, I can see that society is heading the direction that a college degree will eventually be seen as worthless. Is that helping? So, and that's what's happening here with D. Jiangsu, and at the end of the day, Mel, you were right about Jiangsu didn't have an opinion about it being an aberration. But I think a lot of people take, it is a part of the artistic mainstream to assume that it won't be. But we don't know that. This is his opinion. All right, what were you going to say, Katie?
I was just going to say, and I think the first part of that sentence with thus whatever others might come to say suggests that other people will probably have an opinion that differs from his. So if his is...
Oh, I like that. Even more attention to detail.
Then there has to be something that conflicts with that for him to saying, even though it will happen, it's not the truth.
Yeah, we have no idea what number is others. Fabulous. And this comes back to, this is a top-down question. And so what do we have to do on top-down questions? We have to stay between the lines. So we can't add to anything. And this is an example of something that some people will spend 45 seconds on just debating between D and E. And if we can get that down to 15 seconds, that's significant. All right, so I'm excited about today because we're going to talk about reading comp basics. I love reading comp. So typically,
I'm sorry, Nicole.
Yes.
I just had a quick question because I think like just going back to disagree real quick, like my train thought process is that is it wrong that I eliminate answer choices that either one of the people don't talk about? Is that like a wrong way of doing things or?
You're right. I don't know means no.
Okay. Okay, great.
Okay, everyone take 20 seconds and pull up the or reading comp 46 if you have it, or PT 46. Okay, so I want everybody that has 46 just to go through. Does everybody have it pulled up? Go through, and I just want you to label what you think each passage is, what kind of topic it is. Is it a humanities, a law, a social science, or a natural science? You shouldn't have to read the whole thing to be able to determine it. This is take like 30 seconds. Once you have it done, go ahead and say done in the chat. Okay. What kind of passage was number 1? Derek?
Honestly, I don't know.
Ooh, does anybody have an idea?
I put social science.
Social science, does people agree or disagree?
I agree.
Agree, yeah, economics, social science. Excellent. What about passage number 2? Jemmy, what was passage number 2?
I would call it humanities.
Yep, humanities, history. Excellent. Passage number 3, what did you put, Jasmine?
I put science, natural sciences.
Agree or disagree?
I need to make sure I'm on the right one. We're on 45 because I have to step away.
Oh no, I'm on 46.
Oh, Okay, give me 1 second.
Yeah.
I still agree it's natural sciences.
That's why I was surprised you had it a different test. Yes, natural sciences. It's not as tough of a science passage as some because it is like more animal related. At least that's my own opinion. And the last one? Mel?
Oh, it's legal. Sorry, I don't want to stress you.
Okay. So no, why is that important? It sounds pretty basic to be able to do that, but why is that important? Because there are some like not all the case, but there are some differences between how you handle. Is everybody still able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. There are some differences between how you handle them. Does anybody have a least favorite topic?
I do.
Say it at the same time.
Science.
Science for everybody. Okay.
Science.
Science. Yes. Okay. So everyone, as of now, everyone, go ahead and just pick science as your favorite topic, because with my approach, science is going to become the easiest. Why? Because even though the terms are difficult, if we learn to break down sentences, the questions are actually the easiest. Has anybody had that aha moment yet, or are we still working on that?
Still working on it.
Okay, no, when we really work on breaking down sentences, and the reason is oftentimes humanities and law passages are very hard to keep straight who's saying what. So I always start with that. Learn to fall in love with, Jasmine just said is it your favorite because you get them right?
It's my favorite because I'm a scientist.
Oh, that's not even fair. She has an unfair advantage at this test on levels I can't even explain.
I can't stand humanities, so that's my heart.
No, humanities for me is the most interesting, but it is the most difficult. I tend to miss the most questions. Excellent. Okay, so all reading comp is each section is 15 to 17 sentences. We still think that they're intimidating. My general suggestion is to do the passages and questions in order. The only time that we're not going to do the passages in order is if there's if there's a topic you absolutely hate. But right now, what I'm going to say here is don't assume that you hate science yet. We're too far out of the test for us to be like, oh, science passage, skipping over it. Because a lot of people, this is a point where you can really help yourself on the curve, where a lot of people hate science. And so if you can get in, and they don't even try. So if you can get a 1 up there and really invest there, we just asked the class that all of us hate it. So if we can get a 1 up there and focus on that gives us a plus as we go into the test. Typically, it gets harder as you go throughout the section. Sometimes 3 is harder than 4. I would actually say that it probably depends more on the topic between 3 and 4 on which one is harder, just based on your own background knowledge. Most test takers should only do 3 passages and do them well. If you can only do 2 passages well, only do 2 for now in a time section, only do 2 passages well. So if there's 7 questions, doing them well should be getting 6 out of 7. And if you can get 6 out of 7 twice, that's 14. So if you guess on the rest and you just get 2 right, 6 out of 7, that's 12. Yeah. If you guess on the rest and you get 2 right, that's a 14. 6 plus 6 is 12. 12 plus guessing on 2 is 14. That's still a really decent score. And a lot of us are scoring 14s doing all 4, trying to get through all 4 sections. So imagine if we get to the point where you're getting to 2.5 sections well, and you're getting 14 questions right, you're guessing on 2, that's a 16, and you need to get 16 questions right on average per section to get a 160 on the test. So that's how important it is. And lastly, predict. So what is your job when you approach a reading comp passage? The main goal is that you're going to read one sentence 15 to 17 times, not the actual one sentence. There's 15 to 17 sentences, and we're literally going to read them as individual sentences. It's just like, it's as if every sentence is its own stimulus. That's how important breaking down a sentence is. And as you're reading this, the main thing that we need to be thinking about is, why is the author wasting your time with this? Why are they writing it? As you're reading this, are they writing it to educate you? Are they writing it to inform you? Are they writing to persuade you? Are they writing to teach you about something? Are they wanting something to change? Are they advocating for something? Do they care? As I'm reading this, that is the most important thing that I'm thinking about. And what is the difference between, as you're reading it at the very end, before you go on to the questions, one thing you have to ask yourself was, what was the main point of this passage? What is it? What is the main point? Gaia?
Me and mute myself. The main point.
Yes.
Well, like in each, you said each paragraph or each passage?
At the end of the passage.
At the end of the passage, the main point, it's what the author is writing the entire passage for. That's what
Okay, I like that you said, I'm very glad that you said the word for and not about, because there's a big difference between the two. I think growing up when we did reading comp growing up, main point tended to be like, what's the best summary of the passage? That is not what reading comp is on the LSAT. Main point on the LSAT is just like a conclusion question on a stimulus. It's, why did the author write this? What was the one point that they wanted you to get to? I believe someone I forget who it was, told me one good, which we'll get into question types later, but when you think about the main point, when you do get to that question, someone once had the most amazing advice, and it was, if you're narrowing it down, the answer to a main point question, you should be able to pull something out of every single paragraph that supports it. And I just thought that was a really good tip. And then lastly, how long do you spend just on average just reading the passage? So you open your book, you get to a passage, you don't look at any of the questions. How long do you spend just reading it? I want everybody to put in time. How long? And there are several students that have time accommodations in our class. So if you do, go ahead and just share what, or just take that in context of how you divide them up. But how long are you taking to read the passage? Go ahead and put that in the chat now. I'm proud of a lot of you, because I don't think a lot of you are, finally Alma is one that we can call out a little bit this morning. He says 3 minutes, or Trish says too long. Trish, how long is too long? Are you spending 15 minutes, or do you think 5 minutes is too long?
I mean, I would say I might read it within 6 minutes, but then whenever I have to go back and answer the questions, I'm having to then kind of go back through
again. All right, awesome. So I'm on the same page. I got to the point, starting out, I was reading it in like 2 to 3.5 minutes, which is way too fast, because I wasn't that was pretty much a whole waste of 3.5 minutes, because I didn't retain anything that I read, and I was going to the questions and I was constantly having to reference back to the passage. The next thing is, I got to the point where I was spending more like 7 minutes reading a passage, and I was only focusing on 3. If that's where you're at today, that is fine. I actually got to the point where I spent more time reading the passage than I did actually on the questions. So we're going to spend a lot of time at the first part of, or this class and the next class, really focusing on reading. And then we're going to pair it with question types, because once you understand a passage, you can actually pretty much fly through questions just by being able to eliminate wrong answer choices. And so that's the ultimate goal of where we're going. Gaia?
Yeah, so did you start doing 3 at first and then you ended up doing 4? Is that what you said?
I actually, no, I got a, hold on, do I have that on here? Oh, I don't have it on here. Okay. I actually, when I got a 171, I only did 3 reading comp passages and guessed on the 4th.
Wow.
But I probably
good guessing.
No, I got to the point where my accuracy, like I was getting -0 to -1, on LR and logic games. So on reading comp, I had the flexibility where I did the 3 passages that had the most questions, and I probably got all of them right. I maybe missed one question, and then I guessed on the last question where I could only, to do the flex, I only could miss 7 questions to guarantee a 170. And I could have done all 4 passages and maybe got like a 174 or something, but it wasn't worth the risk, because once I speed up, if I would mess one of those passages up by racing, I would have lost my, like I couldn't have scored in the 170s. So I practice what I preach, I guess is the point of that.
Was the test really hard? The flex for you? Was it difficult, or was it just like?
I did June.
Oh.
So I don't really remember. I actually didn't
You
really
don't remember?
I more so, yeah, I don't really like it wasn't, no, I didn't think it was hard, but I've taken so many of the tests that
Oh yeah.
I don't think anything would really, to be honest, that would throw me too much. Should you take notes? So this is a big debate. I'm okay with highlighting some. I don't believe in over highlighting, because the goal of taking notes when we go to class is we take notes or we highlight because we have to reference our notes down the road. We have to come back to them and like kind of know what they were talking about. Our goal of reading comp is just to remember what we read for a short period of time. So instead of wasting energy on highlighting and writing down notes, what I do is I call it sitting on a sentence, and I read a sentence and I just stop, and instead of writing the notes down, I almost just make the notes in my head. But the difference is, I think a lot of people also say to take notes because they don't have the discipline to stop and think about what they read. So that's why you're taking notes. But if we have that discipline, we don't need to be taking a bunch of notes. I'm not saying never write down anything. However, I think there's some programs out there that have like this whole approach of like for like what you write, when you write. I think Cora, you were telling me about it. I think it sounds crazy.
Yeah, that was when I was in Keith and Jake's group.
Oh.
Not to throw them under the bus or anything, but yeah, they were doing the whole TLDR thing, and then they were doing.
I don't know what TLDR means. Like I think
it's like
wait, what is that? The TLDR? I'm sorry.
It's basically making sure that if you're gonna write a note, or like if you're gonna do a main point, it's like your main point of each passage in 7 words or less is what TLDR is. It's like, okay. I forget what the actual, it's like, how can you're talking too much and how can you make it shorter? So 7 words or less. And then the other thing that Keith likes to do is the law approach of something versus something. Because traditionally you have different point of views, and you're going to be writing all the different point of views that they're going to be talking about throughout the passages. So it did become a lot of writing.
Yeah, and I think that's a waste of time, but that's a personal thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so
but you're okay with highlighting though, right?
Yeah, but don't over highlight.
Don't over highlight, right?
When you over highlight, it's just like why I believe in reading the stimulus first. You can't focus on highlighting more than actually letting yourself digest what you're reading.
Yeah, I highlight things where I know where the author's making a turn, where you use this word but or however. That's when I highlight those words, because I know that's where we're having a change.
I also think, Cora, you are like, you have good discipline of making yourself sit on sentences as well, though. Where like I don't have a problem with her making some highlights. Some students, I was one of them. If I start highlighting, I start thinking about the highlighting and not what I'm reading.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have 15.
Nicole, I was gonna say, for me, just quickly, sometimes reading it, but then actually writing it and seeing it makes a difference for me. So I'm not saying we write the whole paragraph, but there might be certain sections that just some people are, you got to see it, then you have to write it.
That I've heard that before. I'm gonna ask you to try it once without it, just to see.
Why? Yeah.
If you, maybe or I also know, like, I have taken the test before and I've written down like 2 things before. So I don't want to say I've never written down anything. However, I don't want it to be that, and I don't want to disagree because you know how you study best, but I don't want it to become a thing where you're writing, so like you're wasting a minute, 2 minutes just writing. But if you're going to be like, hey, one, like, you know, point A here, and then like versus person B, and like writing, hey, here's A, here's B, here's A, like I totally get that. And my opinion on writing has changed a little bit since it, and I should go back and say this, since the test went digital. If you are taking a paper test, that is different. Does that make sense? If you are taking the digital test, if you're taking the digital test, I think it's harder to write because you're not writing on the document. You have to write on your scrap paper. And that I think I don't think it has the same benefit as if you're taking a paper test. Okay, so what we're going to do here is everybody pull up like a Word document or pull up Microsoft Word or get a piece of paper. And what we're going to do is I want you to read each of these sentences. As I said, not take notes. I want you to read one sentence at a time and just write in your own words the summary of it. So how many sentences do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4 sentences. We'll take 4 minutes to do this. Once you're finished, if you have extra time, for each sentence, I want you to circle or just right beside your translated sentence, what is the subject of that sentence? And once you're done, go ahead and put done in the chat. All right, one more minute. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and give an example. Actually, I'll give my example in a second. Okay, so for sentence number 1, Jemmy, can you read it and give us your, read the sentence and then give us your summary?
Economists have long defined prosperity in terms of monetary value, gauging a nation's prosperity solely on the basis of total monetary value of the goods and services produced annually. Whew, that's a pretty long sentence. And what they're basically telling is how economics define prosperity. And there's some details telling there about like it's on the basis of total monetary value of goods and services which are produced annually.
All right, so thank you. Tip number 1, and you hit it. I love that you started with it. It's a really long sentence. Tip number 1, don't be afraid to break sentences into 2 sentences. When I read this is what I do. Economists have long defined prosperity in terms of monetary value. Period. They gauge a given nation's prosperity solely on the basis of the total monetary value of the goods and services produced annually. Isn't it so much easier to understand this when it's a simple tip, but when it's 2 different sentences? Practice that and you're gonna get slower to get, this is once again gonna get slower to get faster. For now, I don't have to break it into 2 sentences. My brain almost naturally does it because I get to this and I see this comma and I'm like, oh, we're gonna give a definition or apply what we just said. And I let my brain catch up. Cora, can you do sentence number 2, please?
Sure. So, however, and this is always something that I would highlight in my own, just because I know we're taking a turn. So, however, critics point out that defining prosperity solely as a function of monetary value is questionable, since it fails to recognize other kinds of values. And it gives examples such as quality of life, environmental health, that contribute directly to prosperity in a broader case. So I broke this down to but, which is also another however. Critics think no one thinks differently on the definition of economy. It doesn't recognize other things that are valuable, and it gives examples like quality of life and environment.
Yes, my definition, I didn't write anything down, but mine would be, hey, but critics point out that by defining prosperity just by money, we're leaving out things like environmental health and quality of life, things that just don't have a money sense that we still value. I watched a law lecture, so certain schools will send you law. I watched Michigan had a tax law class that I watched, and it was like, should you be taxed on enjoying your job? Like, if that value is $150,000, like, should you be taxed? I thought it was interesting. That's why I'm going to law school. Anyways, excellent job, Cora. Sentence number 3, Katie.
For example, as the Earth's ozone layer weakens and loses its ability to protect people from ultraviolet radiation, sales of hats, sunglasses, and sunscreens are likely to skyrocket, all adding to the nation's total expenditures. So, in this example, when the Earth's ozone layer weakens, UV people are more suspect to UV radiation, which means that more products related to that are going to be sold and purchased.
Awesome. When I read this the first time, I struggled to understand, like when I just read it without reading the next sentence, I didn't really understand what this was referencing to or what the point was until I thought about it. Did anybody else struggle with that, or right away did you understand how this example fit in?
I started thinking of, what is your famous thing that you like to do on a weekend or strength question? It's hot outside.
Oh.
So that's what I went to that. It's hot outside. So our demand for sunglasses and UV protection is going to go up.
I agree. Okay, I love that you're doing that. But like, why, for me, this example kind of comes out of left field. Like, why does it matter until you read the next sentence? Why does this, like, why, and I questioned this and I thought of a reason why and I came to it, but not without, normally, but old Nicole would have read this and I would have just moved on to the next sentence and not thought about it. But I pretty much predicted the next sentence without reading it, which helps with my engagement level and helps with my comprehension. Why, without that sentence, why would we include this example? What must be true of this example before we read it?
It's proving the demand for so basically it's going back to the definition that the critics said. So talking about environmental can actually affect demand, and that's how you're he's breaking down the first econ definition. So this right here actually gives you that example of how, because the environment, it's hot outside, for example, the environment can make people end up buying things, and it gives you examples of those. So that means your demand of those are going to go high. So that means your money, your value, it's going to be, and because of environment, your money, prosperity is actually going to go up. So it's your value. You can't get, so it's basically, again, saying the very first sentence, it can't just be the value of the goods. The environment can actually make people want to buy those things, instead of just saying that a 50-inch TV is valuable at $2,000.
Did everybody, when they read this example, did everybody take that level of detail to think about why this example was important?
Sorry.
No, that's great. That's what this exercise is for us to get better at quickly making these, Cora's been practicing this for weeks. So if you're not on that level, do not feel bad. She's made great improvements on this. But if we don't give ourselves the opportunity to become better readers and predictors, we're never going to get better at reading comp. Gaia, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was just gonna say kind of like what she said, that I just thought this is an example of something else that can bring value, like can bring prosperity to a nation. That's all I thought to myself. Like, this is just showing that something else, except other than money. So in this case, it was the environment, the ozone layer is bringing in prosperity.
Awesome. All right. And Alma, do you want to do the last sentence?
In this way, troubling reductions in environmental health and quality of life may in fact initiate economic activity that by the economists measure bolsters prosperity. So it kind of just concludes all three sentences. It talks about the definition that the economists have, but then it also brings in where it talks about the environmental health contributes to prosperity also. So to me, it just kind of linked everything together.
Right. This is a really important sentence because it's saying, like in this example or in this way, the reductions in environmental health and quality of life may initiate economic activity, which obviously is what we're saying here with these critics. However, this economic activity, by the original economist definition, does bolster prosperity. So do we see how we're connecting sentence 1 and sentence 2 with sentence 4? Maybe this is all common sense for everybody. This was not common sense to me when I first started reading comp, how important it was to see these connections. So Okay, so this was past 46. I believe it was reading comp 46, passage 1. For homework, I'm not going to add any sections or anything, but start adding this drill. I believe Derek already does it, but start adding one of these drills to your study habits. Like do just one so not one section, do one passage every day. And so what you're going to do is you're going to spend 5 minutes. If you have additional time, spend 8 minutes. Or if 5 minutes is not enough time, give yourself more time. This 5 minutes is more so as a minimum rather than a maximum. And this is just for one drill. This is not what you're going to do on the test for all 4 sections. This is just for us to work on our reading comprehension accuracy. So what you're going to do is you're going to read the individual passage for 5 minutes. And at the end, ask yourself you're going to go sentence by sentence, how we just did. You're going to ask yourself, what was the main point of the passage? What was the author's goal? And was it a positive, neutral, or negative piece? And then before you do the questions for that passage, go to LSAT CACS or Manhattan Prep or some resource that you have that outlines gives an analysis of the passage, not the questions, just the passage. And I want you to make sure that what you read and the main points that you came up with is aligning with what they're saying. And if not, pay attention to where you started going wrong and how often you're going wrong. Then and only then would I answer the questions. And we're going to talk more about this next time, but when answering questions, always predict an answer when you can. It will save you a lot of time in the long run. Once again, it's going to slow you down to get faster. But if it says, what does the word capital mean in line 52? I would go read line 52 and I would come up with my own my own definition of what capital means there before I would read the answer choices. It is going to take you more time to get faster at this. But in the long run, it does significantly help, especially on answer choices when they all start looking the same. And I'm going to put a link to this in the website for today's class. Stop share. I'm going to leave. So I'm going to go ahead and end class now if anybody has any questions. I do have that LR class today at 12, and like in a half hour, if people were wanting to join. The other thing is I'm going to leave my Zoom meeting open. If people want to get put into groups and finish this passage together and do the questions together, it's not going to be a part of class. I'm just going to leave it open for whoever wants to stay on and continue working on finishing this passage in particular.
Nicole, are you going to record the review section this afternoon?
Yes, as long as someone reminds me.
Okay, please record and just send it to me because I have a 1-year-old that's not going to allow me to stay.
Of course. Bye, Jasmine. Have a great day.
Can I still submit the RC?
Yes, all homework. There is never a deadline to submitting your homework. So say you have a wedding, this week, and you just know that this is a busy week. You can submit your stuff next week, right? Like I'm constantly looking at it. I'm constantly looking at it and pulling in the information. There's no deadline to submitting it. However, I'm not going to transfer over those forms to class number 3 on the website because I have it linked to an Excel sheet. So you do have to go to the right class page to submit your homework. Because then, or else it just gets you confusing on my end where I have it, when you submit that form, it goes into my Excel sheet. So I don't want to have 2 different forms going into one Excel sheet or going into 2 different Excel sheets.
Okay. Is the LR review still on this Zoom? Can we keep the Zoom open or is it going to be on a different Zoom?
Well, I'm going to let this class, whoever's staying on who wants to stay on to do the reading comp exercise? If nobody does, that's totally fine. Cora's a no.
I need to go grab some lunch.
Is anybody a yes? No, nobody's a yes. That's totally fine. I mean, we've been going for an hour and a half, so I just wanted to give people the opportunity. So I'm going to close this meeting and reopen it, but it will be the same link. I just want to let this class I want to end the recording and start a new recording.
Okay. So we would come back at 11:30. I'm talking 12:30. I'm sorry.
12:30 Eastern time. Yep.
Eastern time. Okay. Thank you.
If we don't attend the LR class for the review of 45, is there a way we can access it later? Like, are you recording it?
I'm going to, if I remember.
I'll remind you. I'll be
Thank
back.
you. I've been getting better
I'll
at
remind
it.
you.
I just always throw that in there because I don't want to promise and then let someone down.
Just put right here, reminder code.
Awesome. And someone just asked, how do you pay? I either can like just charge you for it after the class, like on the card that you've submitted, or I can send you an invoice. Don't worry about paying before you join. Like just like I'm not gonna stress about that right now. I want people to come and review this. Sound good? Anybody have any other questions?
You're going to send a link, right? Or maybe I missed it. Oh my God. Did you say it's going to?
This same link.
It's the same link. Okay, great. You're right. You said it. Okay, sorry.
Side note. Okay, I'm gonna turn off the recording now.